received funding for the purposes of this lab. I guess two questions. Is that construction already started for that, or is this legislation necessary for that process to begin?
Thank you for the question. So development of the lab has started. Construction has not started yet. We've been working with the architect. The blueprints are almost done. We've ordered equipment already, and so we have some of the more high-tech instruments already delivered and in storage. This is essentially required to allow us to have marijuana. When the 2018 law passed and allowed for adult use marijuana, it wasn't sort of an unlimited use of marijuana, right? Individuals are still limited in how much they can have, how many plants they have, sales, cultivation of large amounts, testing, that requires a license. Nothing in the law explicitly gave the agency the ability to have marijuana for the purposes we're going to use it for. That's all this bill really does.
Thanks.
Representative Filler.
So CRA currently tests, does investigations. This just gives them a specific place to do that at legally. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we don't actually do any testing right now. All of the testing that we need to have done as part of investigations, we actually have to have licensed laboratories do that, which those licensed laboratories are also participants in the market. And so it creates a bit of a less than desirable situation. This would allow us, again, without any interest in the market, to be able to collect the marijuana we need to test it, and then provide reliable results. So that's what it would do.
So better quality control, better review of what's going on in Michigan's cannabis industry.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Representative Fall.
Actually, Rep Filler asked the question that I was basically going to ask. So thank you.
Rep Nair.
Thank you, Chair. I guess who would have the authority over this, and then would you be exclusively locked into having state employees, or would you be able to contract with somebody to run the facility, and how would that be handled?
So it will be a state-run laboratory. We'll house that in our building up on North Martin Luther King here in Lansing. Right now, we've anticipated filling it with state employees. I think we were budgeted 5 employees, which is what we think we'll need. Yeah, so this will be an in-house lab. It'll be accredited. We'll have to go through all of the other sort of third-party accreditations that licensed laboratories do, but it will be state-run, yes.
I have just quick, when do you think you'll be online with that?
So a lot of it depends on sort of when we can get all the equipment ordered. A lot of this is specialty equipment. A lot of it comes from overseas. We're targeting the end of this year to hopefully be able to start doing some of the testing. It's one of those things where there's a number of tests that licensed labs currently do. It's possible, for example, if we're only able to do a handful of those at a given time, we could still start opening and doing those tests until the rest of the equipment or procedures come online. But we're looking before the end of this year.
All right, thanks for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have one more question. Rep Nair.
On a side note, would say an individual company that wants a product tested there, would they be able to contract with the lab for that work? And this whether it be quality or potency, whatever, would they be able to actually hire the lab to do the testing for them? Or would they be required to go out of state still?
That's a great question. So we already have licensed labs in Michigan that will do that type of testing for businesses. We are not looking to take over that responsibility. So we know right now that a lot of licensed growers and processors, the agreements they have with the labs they currently use for testing, a lot of those relationships, the lab would say, hey, this is what we're noticing in some of your products. Here's maybe some ways you can improve your findings. So that's something that licensed labs already do with the customer growers and processors they have. We are not looking to take over that responsibility. That's something they would continue to do.
Thanks. I have a couple cards to read in. In support of the bill, not wishing to speak, Manny Latine from Common Citizen. In support, not wishing to speak, Kevin A. McKinney, Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. Next up, we're going to take testimony on House Bills 5527 and 5528. Oh, maybe we'll go to these. The committee will come back to order. Now, we will take testimony on House Bills 5527, 5528. Representative Fitzgerald and Chair Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that short commercial break as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on my bill, House Bill 5527 and Companion Bill 5528. I'll cut to it. Alongside Rep. Carter's bill 5528, these will save lives and greatly increase the chance of survival in a cardiac emergency. The bill package would improve school safety by requiring schools to develop cardiac emergency response plans, offer training, and require access to automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, which are used to help those in cardiac emergencies. Specifically, my bill would require an automated external defibrillator to be accessible within 1 to 3 minutes of a cardiac emergency, which is determined through data and best practices. Beginning with the 2025-2026 school year, the governing body of a public school with an athletic department or organized athletic program shall develop that cardiac emergency response plan, which includes the use of school personnel to respond to a sudden cardiac arrest or other similar life-threatening emergency at a school-sponsored athletic event. These bills have support from the American Heart Association, the Michigan chapter of the American College of Cardiology, as well as the NFL. And I've worked alongside many stakeholders, including the Michigan Association of School Boards, to develop the specifics in this bill. House Bill 5527 is of specific interest to the NFL in response to the cardiac arrest incident of Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin in January of 2023 during a Monday Night Football game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So for those who may be unfamiliar with this incident, Damar Hamlin suffered a cardiac arrest after making a tackle. CPR as well as an AED device were quickly administered, saving his life. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but made a full recovery and returned to football. Sudden cardiac arrest is relatively uncommon, but still a threat for young people, particularly those who play sports. Nationally, about 39% of all incidents of sudden cardiac arrest among those younger than 18 occurred in a sports-related setting in 2022, according to the American Heart Association. Some schools in Michigan already have AEDs equipped in their schools, but the state doesn't require schools or school athletic facilities to have these AEDs on hand. Unfortunately, Michigan has its own horror stories related to student athletes experiencing a cardiac arrest episode. On January 31st of last year, an 18-year-old senior at Northwestern High School in Detroit suffered a cardiac arrest episode. He was given CPR, but the use of an AED was delayed. Tragically, he died a week later while on life support. In March of 2011, after hitting the game-winning shot, Wes Leonard from Fenville collapsed after being hoisted in the air by teammates in celebration. An AED, which would have been affixed on a wall nearby, was found in a storage room with a dead battery. After only a few minutes, he died. Wes had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which can cause a sudden cardiac arrest during high levels of exercise. Currently, schools can decide whether to offer a certification program or provide hands-only CPR. The Michigan High School Athletic Association, however, has more stringent requirements of head coaches for varsity, junior varsity, and ninth grade teams to have valid CPR certification, but no requirement for them to be trained to be in the use of AEDs. The average cost of one of these devices is about $1,500, and I'm hopeful that we can work this into the funding and appropriations process or potentially with private funds. But what is the life of a child worth? My office is still actively working with stakeholders to consider a few minor changes, and we hope to have a sub ready shortly. This is common sense legislation that will protect the lives of student athletes, school personnel, and families. I want to thank the committee again for the opportunity to testify today. And I'll make sure we turn over to Chair Carter here as well.
Thank you, Representative Fitzgerald. I don't know how much to add, huh? No, my House bill would require that all high school coaches are certified in AED training, along with the already required CPR certification. Currently, the Michigan High School Athletic Association requires all varsity, junior varsity, and ninth grade head coaches of each high school team to have a valid concurrent CPR certification. However, although AED training is often included in the CPR certification and is preferred, it is not specifically required in the statute. Training and certification is necessary to know when and how to use an AED in a safe, timely, and effective manner. This bill would simply add the AED certification requirement into statute to ensure that all coaches, not just head coaches, can act swiftly to ensure our high school athletes get the care they need from a trained professional in the event that will require CPR or AED attention. And I'll just say this, for those of you who've never had to use one or don't know anything about it, they are really self-explanatory. They give audible instructions. They tell you what to do. They tell you when to hit the paddles. And it's almost like we're negligent if we don't have these, given what has taken place. So thank you for allowing me to testify, and we'll take any questions.
How long does it take to get the certification on the device?
If we add it in with the regular CPR training, it may be just another extra hour with the CPR training that is already mandatory.
I would also add that many coaches, I myself was a swim coach for high school students and age group swimmers. Professional lifesaver which is the certification that you take for lifeguarding and otherwise. That's included with AED courses as well. So that's a lot of it is already built in, and it's usually, I think, an additional 30 to 45 minutes, I think, more or less in the training course. And again, the devices themselves have pictures. I mean, you could really have limited senses and be able to determine where to put those paddles, and it's telling you when to push the button. It lights up. It's very self-explanatory, I think, once they start operating.
I thank you. Representative Filler.
Thanks, guys. Like where you're going on this, do have some questions about the specifics. The 1 to 3 minutes, I believe, that's written into the bill. I'm just not sure how a school would know what 1 to 3 minutes means. Are there people in the hall? Is it a certain time of day that would change that? And I think that opens up schools up for lawsuits. So that's something I would worry about, and just really encourage you to work on that going forward. I don't know if you got something to add.
Well, I was going to say, and the question is it Graham Filler running for that, or Representative Filler running for that, or the 18-year-old track star, right? 1 to 3 minutes for that mile athlete who can run it in 4 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the points that we brought up with the school boards about this, is that, time can be relative, especially in terms of response. That is a data-driven response time, and that's why we want to really kind of highlight that, is that when we can have interventions in that 1 to 3 minute territory, the chance of survival goes significantly up. But we need to understand as well the physical constraints of a school and how we can make sure that this is available across campus, across an athletic facility, and how it can be most effective and placed effectively for the best response. So you're not wrong, and that's one thing that we are working on in the substance.
Let me just add, it should push schools and coaches to know placement. The example he gave about where it was in a room, it was just not operable.
Sure.
If we can know where they are and students know where they are, I think 3 minutes sometimes is one of those things, but we have to put something in place. And under the Good Samaritan Act, if I remember, because I did this at the community college years ago, for somebody to get sued for doing this has never happened. But I'd wish we would have them in place and make a mistake to not have them at all. We'll take our chances. But I know we live in a litigious society.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Representative Mueller.
Thank you. More of a statement, and I guess this comes back from my childhood. Back in 1985, I mean, I didn't know this was coming up until just today when I read it. There was a young man named Chris Joslin who died, 18 years old, pitcher for, I think it was Flint Southwestern. Sat down after a game, was listening to his headphones, and had a cardiac issue, and it happened to be my friend's cousin. So, it does happen. So, if we can work out some of the stuff, I think it would be very good for the schools to have. Plus, with the critical incident mapping that we just did, it could be integrated into the map. So then you can pull that stuff up and the first responders know where they're at. When you go to the baseball field, because some baseball fields are further away, and football fields have them, have the coach, you have the portable ones. If I can run one, any one of you out in this room can run one, because unfortunately I had to do it as a police officer. So I think you're heading in the right direction.
Thanks, Rep. Mueller. I'll just say this, and there's an old saying, we'd rather have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. We can work on the logistics, but I think that if we do this, this is a huge step toward that peace of mind and that safety that as a parent, as a student, as a participant in any sport, that exists.
And the thing is, back then they didn't have the technology. We have the technology now, and we should be using it to save our kids.
Representative Scott.
Thank you. Thank you for this important testimony. Do you know how many schools currently have these type of machines in place?
I believe that there was a study done or a survey done of schools that actually more than 90% of schools already have an AED device in them. The point here too is also about standardization of the response and training for that response. You know, in that example of West Leonard having that device in a storage closet that had not been appropriately charged, that's what we're trying to prevent, is that there's some familiarity to the response. And so that in a crisis, there's more of a plan of action than not. The placement of those devices as well. I mentioned that the average cost is about $1,500. I wouldn't doubt that there may be communities where individual, philanthropy or community philanthropy would step in to provide those at schools as well. But we are looking within the appropriations process on how we can create an opportunity for the funds to be accessible here at the state.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you both for your testimony.
Real quick statement. Were all of you aware that there are AEDs in these facilities? Check it out.
The committee will go at ease.
We are back on the record, and we have some cards. Wishing to speak in support of, we have Cindy DeWolf and Alex Bowerson from the American Heart Association. You can press the red button when you're ready. Introduce yourselves.
Hello, good morning. I'm Cindy D. Wolf from the American Heart Association.
Hello, I'm Alexander Bowerson. I'm a freshman at U of M, and I am a cardiac arrest survivor in my high school.
All right. Good morning, Chair Carter, Vice Chairs Liberati and Mueller, and members of the House Regulatory Reform Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of House Bills 5527 and 5528. The American Heart Association strongly supports these bills, and we're thankful to be here today to share why these bills will save lives. As I said, my name is Cindy D. Wolf. I'm a Mission Advancement Director for the American Heart Association. Since mid-2023, the American Heart Association, along with the NFL, the American College of Cardiology, and Project Atom, have been working with sponsors to require schools to establish comprehensive cardiac emergency response plans and ensure that all coaches are trained on the use of CPR and AEDs in the event of a cardiac emergency. Cardiac arrest occurs when the heart malfunctions and stops beating correctly. In the US, more than 350,000 people suffer a cardiac arrest out of the hospital each year. Only 10% survive. That's because only 40% of people get the proper response in the community before emergency responders arrive. It's often everyday heroes like me or you who have to step in. A cardiac emergency response plan, or a CERP, you'll hear it called, is a written document that establishes those specific steps that are needed to reduce death from cardiac arrest. CERPs are particularly important in school settings. We have like 1.4 million students in schools. We have 74,000 teachers and countless support staff in our schools on any given day. Staff, students, and visitors can become lifesavers when they're properly trained and empowered to administer care before EMS arrives. Schools are a nucleus for community events. We have plays, we have sporting events. And by creating this nation of lifesavers, we can ensure that all those that gather at schools and those after-school events know what to do in the event of a cardiac emergency. CERPs can more than double survival rates from cardiac arrest. 9 out of 10 people with cardiac arrest who receive a shock from an AED, an automated external defibrillator, in the first minute live. More than 15% of out-of-hospital cardiac arrests occur in a public location like a school, but only 10% are receiving that AED shock. And we see them. You have them out in your corridor here, but often they become part of the scenery. These bills give teeth to the Michigan's existing cardiac emergency response plan law, which is ambiguous and provides little guidance for schools. These bills will ensure that school athletic facilities and events have the tools and the resources they need to respond to a cardiac emergency. They provide guidance around placement, maintenance, and use of an AED, and ensure all coaches are trained in CPR and AED use. CPR, if performed immediately, can double or triple a person's chance of survival. And in schools where there are AEDs and CERPs, approximately 70% of children survive. That's 7 times more than anywhere else. Having individuals trained in cardiac emergency response can make a big difference, especially in our rural areas, our rural communities, where EMS response time may be longer. Every life lost is one too many, and these bills will save lives. I encourage you to vote yes on House Bills 5527 and 5528. And I thank you for allowing me time today. And I've already introduced, Alex has already introduced himself, but I'm going to turn it over to him.
All right. Thank you for giving me time to speak today about my story that changed my life forever, and why this bill would save lives and would lead to incredible things. So I'll give you a little background. I'm a freshman right now, but last year I was a senior in my hometown called Memphis, Michigan, which is near Port Huron, which is a small rural community. And during high school, I was a 3-sport athlete, extreme weightlifter, played varsity football captain, played baseball, was a wrestler, did it all, and never thought anything like this could happen. Never thought about my heart, just, doing my thing. And so I was raised there. And then December 15th, 2022, my life changed forever. It was another normal day at wrestling practice. Put on my shoes, get ready to run. I was running for about 2 minutes. I got a tight pain in my chest and hit the floor probably about 15 seconds later. And while I was having an experience that will forever make me a Christian, there was a situation going on that saved my life, and that I wish other kids will have the access to because through these bills. So while I was in cardiac arrest, there was an ER nurse at my school and an automatic external defibrillator. And it was because of these two events, these two things at my school, that my life was saved and I had an incredible outcome with my cardiac arrest. When I first went into cardiac arrest, people did not know what to do. My wrestling coach didn't know what to do. My athletic trainer, the athletic director, did not know what to do. And it would have been a bad outcome, but there was an ER nurse there who was also the varsity cheer coach. And she knew exactly what to do, noticed I wasn't breathing correctly, got the defibrillator on me. And by the time I was only in a terrible rhythm for about 2 minutes before that AED shocked me, and it led to an incredible outcome. And I would not be alive today if it was not for this AED and for someone who knew what to do. And I would not have had such a great outcome if it wasn't for an AED and someone who knew what to do. Ambulance in a rural community took about 15 minutes to show up. I don't think there's any possible chance I would have survived if there was no AED in my school. And is the only reason I'm here today, along with someone who knew what to do. And I just thank you for this time, and I hope this story can encourage you that these bills will save lives. They'll save young lives, and this is a problem, and here's a solution.
Wow, thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Any questions? I think you made your point. All right. Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have in support and wishing to speak, Alyssa Vandermeulen from Project Adam. And you can correct me if I got your name wrong.
All right. It's Alyssa Vermeulen. Yes, but a lot of people add Vander because of the Dutch predominant. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Chair Carter, Vice Chairs Liberati and Mueller, members of the House Regulatory Reform Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of Project Adam in support of House Bills 5527 and 5528. My name is Dr. Alyssa Vermeulen. I'm a pediatric cardiologist at University of Michigan Mott Children's Hospital, and I serve as the National Director of Education and the Michigan Medical Director for Project Adam, which is a nationwide program dedicated to the educating and preparing schools for sudden cardiac arrest through proper equipment and cardiac emergency response plans and drills. My job as a pediatric cardiologist is to identify, treat, and prevent cardiac disorders from fetus to young adults, and my passion is bringing that to the community. Over 30 years ago, at 14, Adam Lamel wrote, "I want to live a life I can be proud of." 3 years later, he collapsed on a basketball court. There was no AED present, and he became one of the 90% who suffer from a sudden cardiac arrest and die. His legacy lives on with Project Adam, founded in 1999. Our Michigan chapter is proud to have more heart-safe schools than any other state, in part due to the strong support from the MDHHS. They have worked with Project Adam to convene the Michigan Alliance for Prevention of Sudden Cardiac Death in the Young and create the My Heart Safe School program. Michigan already prioritizes sudden cardiac death preparedness and education, but we can go further. Sudden cardiac arrest is an abrupt, unexpected loss of heart function, usually resulting from an electrical problem. The heart provides life through plumbing and electricity. The electrical system tells the heart when to fill and contract and circulates blood throughout the body and organs via the plumbing system. A common misconception is that sudden cardiac arrest is the same as a heart attack. However, a heart attack is when blood flow to the heart is reduced or lost, essentially a plumbing issue. And this tends to occur later in life. Sudden cardiac arrest is again an electrical issue that can occur at any age and without an identifiable cause. Like a power outage, it is sudden, abrupt, and devastating. Without electricity, the body is left without blood flow, and the only fix is restoring that electricity. CPR assists in manually pumping the blood to the body, and an AED restores that electricity. When an AED is appropriately applied within 3 minutes, survival approaches 90% to hospital discharge. For every minute the heart is stopped, that survival decreases by 10%. With the goal time of EMS response being 8 minutes, you can see how lay people and AEDs are crucial for survival after sudden cardiac arrest. But AEDs alone are not enough. We need to have plans, trained persons, and easily accessible, functioning AEDs to help save lives. Michigan is a state proud of diversity, but disparities still exist as well. There's a documented decrease in CPR given in lower socioeconomic communities, predominantly Black or Hispanic neighborhoods, and in females and young children. This disparity could be lessened with the measures instituted by the bills presented today, especially in our schools. On any given day, 20% of the population, not just students as mentioned previously, is within the walls of a school. And by providing for our schools and maintaining practice, we can make Michigan schools prepared to respond to sudden cardiac arrest, no matter who you are, what your age, or where you live. I urge you to vote yes on House Bills 5527 and 5528 for your family, for your community, and for those who dream to live a life they want to be proud of so they can have a chance to do so. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. We have a question from Representative Aragona.
Thank you for being here, ma'am. You just mentioned that an AED needs to be applied within 3 minutes, and then there's 10% damage to the system for every minute that it's not applied after that. Did I get that right?
Yeah, so the data and evidence conducted in cardiac arrest registries shows that every minute that the heart doesn't have that electricity, the proper electricity to pump the blood to the body, the survival to hospital discharge decreases by 10%. So that's sort of where that 3 minutes comes from. And the data is that the best survival is within 3 minutes, and then it just drops by 10% every minute after that.
Okay. And young fellow behind you, I mean, he testified, and I hope you don't mind me relating to your case here, but he said that one was applied within 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
However, he said that an ambulance was 15 minutes away if that wasn't there. So I know you're not a soothsayer. You can't tell me exactly what would happen or tell the future, anything like that. But can you let me know 15 minutes? It's 15 minutes away. It's applied within 15 minutes. Best case scenario, worst case scenario for him.
I'm fairly confident there would be no scenario where he would be alive today.
Thank you.
I also would want to mention, knowing Alex's story, that the AED used on him was nearly dead with malfunctioning pads that were expired and had one shock left. Had he needed another shock, he wouldn't be here today.
Any other questions? Thank you for your advocacy and your
Thank you for having
testimony.
me.
Next, we have wishing to speak in support of the bill, Kenneth Edmonds, NFL Smart Heart Sports Coalition.
Good morning, Chairman Carter, Vice Chairman Liberati and Mueller, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Kenneth Edmonds. I serve as Vice President of Public Policy and Government Affairs for the National Football League. I am pleased to testify today on behalf of the NFL, as well as the Smart Heart Sports Coalition. The coalition strongly supports both House Bill 5527 and House Bill 5528, life-saving measures that go hand in hand. We urge the committee, as well as the entire General Assembly, to pass these important bills as soon as possible. Following the life-saving response to Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin and his inspirational recovery, the NFL helped to lead the launch of the Smart Heart Sports Coalition in March of 2023. The coalition includes major sports leagues and organizations, as well as leading patient and health advocacy groups across the country, including the American Heart Association, nearly 40 stakeholders in all. We have come together to advance a simple yet essential goal: to save lives. We want Michigan and every state across the country to have in place the 3 evidence-based policies that reflect the basic elements of the response that saved Damar's life. If adopted, these core elements will save the lives of student athletes and others who may experience sudden cardiac arrest in a school setting. These core elements are venue-specific and rehearsed athletic emergency action plans or cardiac emergency response plans that are tailored to athletic venues where schools, athletes play and compete. Clearly marked AEDs at or in close proximity to each athletic venue. And finally, CPR training, including in the use of AEDs for coaches. Adopting these policies is critical, especially given that sudden cardiac arrest is the leading cause of death among young athletes. House Bill 5527 and 5528 do that. They will save lives. Specifically, House Bill 5527, as you've heard, builds on and expands current law by requiring public schools to develop and implement SERPs that establish in writing how school personnel respond to sudden cardiac arrests or other life-threatening emergencies at school-sponsored athletic events and venues. Under a 2014 law, SERPs are now required only for school buildings. In addition, the SERPs stipulate that AEDs be accessible within 1 to 3 minutes of a school's campus, as well as athletic facilities. Furthermore, as a component of the SERP, school personnel must be designated as part of a cardiac emergency response team, all of whom must be trained in CPR and the use of an AED. And given that 4 in 10 sudden cardiac arrests among young people occur when they are engaged in physical activity, House Bill 5528 reinforces the ranks of lay responders by requiring all school athletic coaches, not just head coaches, to obtain CPR certification. If passed, these common sense, practical, and vital measures will make Michigan school communities, including the places where young people play and compete, safer, equipped, and better prepared to swing into action and respond to a cardiac emergency if it occurs. On behalf of the Smart Heart Sports Coalition, I urge you to approve these bills, which will represent a big victory for students and their safety. And I thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Thank you. Not wishing to speak, but in support of the bill, we have Bill Warts from the Detroit Lions. In support of the bill, not wishing to speak, we have Dr. Brad Urin from Michigan State Medical Society. Not wishing to speak in support of the bills, we have Katrina Stromberg from the Michigan chapter of American College of Cardiology. And not wishing to speak in support of the bill, we have John Secco from Michigan Athletic Trainers Society. With there being no further business before the House Regulatory Reform Committee, we stand adjourned.